we've seen all of the talk in the press about Joshua versus Fury, and we've signed the date, and we've got the venue, we've got this, and we've got that. One fight that we didn't hear anything about until it was announced was Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. We're just sitting around minding our own business, and then he's what? Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old. I mean,
the thing is, all right. It's only Manny Pacquiao. You could say a 42-year-old still go a 42-year-old boxing. I know he's been out since the car accident, but a prime boxer.
Well, he boxed Danny Garcia. He come back with Danny Garcia.
But go, yes, what a fight. Do you know what I mean? And you go, oh, he's boxing a 42-year-old, but it's Manny Pacquiao, so it's just all bets are off. And
also with Pacquiao, I don't know, at the time I was really surprised. I can't believe that. And then somebody said, well, why can't you believe it? Look at Pacquiao's career. And you kind of think,
it's a great career, man.
Yeah, like he's the only person at that stage of his career. He's had, like, there's an argument to say he's had 3 Hall of Fame careers already.
It's crazy.
Which is just unbelievable. And now he's going in there one more time against Errol Spence. The number one, in my opinion, the number one in the division. Say what you want about Crawford ahead of him. Spence has the best wins at 147 by a distance. And he's a big welterweight as well. I mean, he's really a junior middleweight or a light middleweight in a welterweight division.
I just can't see Pacquiao beating a big fella. Hang on a minute.
He just can't. Like,
do you know what I mean? Like, again, you should, especially at this age. Oh no, he couldn't be the good young fighter at this age.
But this is what we were saying about him, Keith Thurman, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. You know what I mean? Whatever you say about him, you go, you can't do that. But, ooh. And I know Danny Garcia, but Danny Garcia is not the fighter he was, and he's not a big welterweight either. No, that's not fair. He's big enough, and that's a good win. That's a good win for Spence, to be fair. That was, and good to see him back and not really, damaged.
Yeah, kind of went through the motions a little bit at times, but still a good win on paper.
But he's going to have to be sharp against. Unless the thing is, at that age and the long career he's had, you just don't know what you're going to get. He could fall apart on the night. But if Pacquiao's a good Pacquiao, he's a nightmare for anyone. Because that activity, the way he throws punches,
awkward rhythm, and
it's his feet. He moves around you like this. His feet don't stop moving. But I've never known a fighter to have such active feet, but still maintain the power. It's the weirdest thing. Like you can tell he's not. He's from a kickboxing or something background, or whatever, Thai box or whatever it is. Because they have they can throw heavy shots, but be on the balls of their feet. Because they used to kick in, With most boxers, you have to you got to get you're supposed to get the feet right on the balls of your feet for movement. But then you have to plant your feet to throw the hard shot to push off your feet. But he doesn't. So he throws hard shots while he's moving. It's the weirdest. Like I've never known anyone to do it. I mean, you have had people who can do it, of course, but the way he does it, it's just
from flyweight right the way through as well.
Oh, it's just unbelievable.
He's an absolute freak. I mean, one of the things that kind of initially
all he eats is cabbage, apparently.
Yeah. Well, let's move on from that. But anyway. It was something that somebody kind of mentioned to me. We mentioned that he's 42 years old. You don't know. I mean, what I don't want to see is an old Manny Pacquiao get his ass kicked. I don't want to see.
But that might very well happen.
Might very well happen. But it might have happened against Keith Thurman, and we saw him in that fight kind of roll back the years. And when you're as great a fighter as Manny Pacquiao has been over such a long period of time, there's always going to be that question of can he do it one more time? Can he roll back the years one more time?
It's not as if he's maintained this degree of excellence throughout his career.
He's had his ups and downs, particularly at welterweight. Yeah,
look at Jeff Horn. Like that I thought. I thought Jeff Horn won that fight. People argued that Pacquiao won it, and it was close. But I thought Jeff Horn won right. And Jeff Horn, decent fighter, but not really at that level of his level. And you thought, fair enough. But Pacquiao couldn't find that extra gear that he had in the past to get over the line. So this is the end of him. What was that? 6 years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
So all of a sudden you go, wow. Like again, another career. Like it's just the weirdest thing. He sheds the skin, doesn't he? Like every time he gets beat, he sheds the skin and comes back better than ever before. Marquez was the finish of him. Really? Fair enough.
He got knocked out by Marquez, and then obviously he beats Tim Bradley, and they give Bradley the decision. But still, that's back-to-back losses at that stage. You kind of think, oh, what's next for him? But yeah, he's
great. But it's a great fight because, the activity of him, the movement, and the way he throws his punches, the angles, is for a conventional fighter like Spence, is a nightmare.
We also had John McDonald, who shout out John McDonald. He writes for Boxing Social, and he said that he'd spoken to Freddie Roach a number of years ago. I can't remember after which fight. I think it was 5 years ago. I can't remember which fight Pacquiao had. And Freddie Roach apparently said, like, we don't like the Crawford fight. I don't like the Crawford fight for Manny because I don't think that's a good style matchup for him, but I like the Spence fight. He said Spence is a good fit for Manny, and I think Spence lost 4 times. I think as an amateur, he lost 4 times, all against southpaws. He was hurt against a southpaw as a professional. The only other southpaw he's boxed is Chris Van Heerden. But Manny Pacquiao, Freddie Roach has said for a long time that he fancies that fight. And you can kind of see why. When you think about the different styles between Spence and Crawford, you can kind of see why you would gravitate more to Pacquiao against a Spence.
Switch, and he's athletic, so he comes at different angles himself.
And you think about the problems that Pacquiao's had against counter punchers like Marquez, like Mayweather, and guys who can move.
And Spence is brilliant, but Spence is upright, not upright, but if you want to, he's as close as upright as you can get, and he's more conventional. So for Pacquiao, the more conventional you are, the better it is for him to move around the target for you, because he needs you to be throwing in straight lines. So he got something. So when you throw a straight jab, he got that to work off. There, he works off that. Then you can work around that movement. But if you're throwing punches from here and different angles, then he can't come at that angle. So you're blocking that route for him, if you like. So he has to adjust himself. But when you're in your conventional, like even that's why the Marquez fights, because all those fighters like that, the Mexicans, because they, as good as they are, they're quite conventional. You know the jab's going to come before the right hand, so he can switch his feet straight away because he got the fastest feet in boxing. Like even probably still now today, got the fastest feet in boxing. The way he gets around the target is quite phenomenal. And again, I say he maintains that power, and that'll be a problem for Spence if Pacquiao is the Pacquiao we've seen in the past.
It's difficult because
I still fancy Spence though.
Yeah, I fancy Spence, but you can only really call it on what you've seen the last of Manny Pacquiao in the ring, which was against Keith Thurman, and he had plenty left that night. He took some big shots from Keith Thurman as well, particularly in the second half of the fight. All I want to see from the fight, whether he wins or loses Manny Pacquiao, obviously I don't have a horse in the race, so to speak. I'd just like to see 4 or 5 rounds of him rattling off those combinations, in and out with the feet, and really giving Spence those early problems. I do think the size of Errol Spence, the body punching, we saw Keith Thurman land some body punches on Manny Pacquiao that seemed to get a reaction and hurt him. I think Spence will be the bigger man. Maybe some people were talking about, oh, well, I see a Mikey Garcia performance from Errol Spence. Manny Pacquiao, with all due respect to Mikey Garcia, is not Mikey Garcia. Stylistically, they're very, very different fighters, completely different fighters. But I just want to see 5-6 rounds of Manny Pacquiao. I don't want to say at his best, but
I think you'll get
roll
that.
the years
even
back.
if he's not winning the rounds, he'll be that. The thing you get with Pacquiao, he don't feel sorry for himself ever, and he can only fight one way, which is the variation of losing. But I mean, he's hard to read. But one way, he's high energy. He's not a guy who wants to slow the pace down ever. Why does he? Because high energy is what he does. So that's why he's always in good fights. That's why he's in so much money. That's why he's exciting. That's why he's been so successful. But you can't keep going to the well forever. That's the problem.
Where would a win for Manny Pacquiao put him? I mean, you're talking about one of the all-time greats anyway.
Great.
But a win over the number one in the division. I don't think it's the credit
he deserves, actually.
No, I don't either.
I don't know why that is. Well, it may be because of the questions over how he's maintained his excellence for so long, or who knows. But either way, he just...
And he doesn't have an unblemished record like a Floyd Mayweather or somebody like that. He has been knocked out, got knocked out flyweight.
The thing is, though, like, we all of us go on, and especially on Twitter, we all go on about an undefeated record means nothing. And it does if you box quality. It does if you're Josh Taylor, because he's boxed quality. But Pacquiao, at the level he's boxed, you can't stay undefeated. And yesterday, no one cares about undefeated records.
Morales.
You lose the fight, but he's come back and won. And that's brilliant. So I don't think that hinders him at all. He's a Hall of Famer, guaranteed. Now he's just the fact he's not in there is because he won't retire.
Because he's not retired yet.
And he is, and no, he was never going to beat Mayweather, whatever happened. Whatever time they box, he was never going to beat him. That's just, the styles just was never any good for him. Mayweather can slow you down. He's so good, and that was always going to be the problem for him. But apart from that, he was good enough to beat anyone on his day and cause anyone in the world a problem. I don't think he beats some of the great welterweights of all time, but he shouldn't be a welterweight.
No, he shouldn't. Even by his own admission, he could still make 140 now.
No, he shouldn't even be. I'm arguing about, like, should he be a lightweight? Do you know what I mean? That's what I think. He's tiny. He went through from when he was at super featherweight. I mean, he boxed David Diaz at 135, and then he kind of was it really. It was really a little bit of a pit stop at 135. Yeah, it was, my man. Yeah.
Then he went up, and before you knew it, he boxed De La Hoya. And once he boxed De La Hoya, that was it. He'd gone. But a win over Errol Spence at this stage of his career, 42 years old, inactive, #1 in the division. I mean, you're talking about one of the great wins, I think.
Yes, of course.
If he can pull that off, you're talking about one of the great wins in a great career.
We're going about Hopkins. He maintained his brilliance for so long, and how he could be so world class.
Imagine we get like a Hopkins Pavlik style performance.
Yeah, but
where he just pulls, he just kind of, everybody thinks he's done, #1 the guy in the division, and he just pulls it out. Imagine he does it. It'll be unbelievable.
See, I think the longevity of Pacquiao is more impressive than the longevity of Hopkins. Even though Hopkins was older, of course.
Because of the style?
And the age. Just, the bigger fight, you always see
those little fighters, they burn out quicker.
Yeah, because every fight's sort of hard, because you don't have that natural one-punch power that they do at the bigger guys. I think and he's boxed. Hopkins had a great. I know,
but Pacquiao boxed a better
I'm not picking on Hopkins' career to make his better, but yeah, he's boxed brilliant fighters from featherweight on, like really has.
Right, we've got to get going because we've got to get you out of here. So before I let you go, I want to ask what next for Terence Crawford. Where's Crawford in all of this? Because Crawford was talking about. I mean, Crawford Pacquiao fight has been talked about for the last 5 or 6 years. The money's coming from Dubai, but why do we always listen? It's like the money's coming from the Middle East. I think we should sort of push that to one side for a little bit. But anyway. Where does this leave Terence Crawford? You've got
he's got to fight whoever it is. He's got to fight. But I think now, see, you pay a fight a certain amount of money, and that's his marker. So when you say, "Oh, you got to fight this guy though," so I can't pay you that, then they go, I got 2 million in my last fight. No, you want to pay 800,000. Yeah, but you boxed him your last fight. Now you're boxing this guy who's going to take you 3 rounds. I think you just got to take the hit and fight. Because he's not a young man, by the way. Was he 33?
He's 33, 34, around there, yeah.
So, as good as he is, he'll be out in a minute. He'll be done. And so I think he needs to take a fight, and then maybe Josh Taylor.
I'm not sure what the situation. I think
Josh Taylor will take that fight, by the way.
Of course he'd take that fight. 100% he'd take that fight.
I don't mean out of pride. I mean because he'll think, well, that's a big money fight. And also, he ain't still young anymore, and he's been inactive.
And Josh Taylor will believe that he can beat Terence Crawford for sure.
And he very well might, But yeah, so I think that... But I don't think the Spence fight's going to happen at all, ever.
I think the only way that fight happens is if you believe in what you hear with regards to Terence Crawford's contract at Top Rank. That looks like it's coming to an end this year. Yeah. October's been the month that's kind of been banded about. If after then he goes over to PBC, but you'd think that if he goes over to PBC, they're going to have him go Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, those guys first anyway.
It don't happen because Spence goes on the A side. And you go, why? Can I just beat Manny Pacquiao? And he go, but I'm undisputed this weight.
I think we saw Bomac, who's Terence Crawford's trainer, talking about, we want the Manny Pacquiao fight, we want the Errol Spence fight, but they're 50-50.
And that's ridiculous because Pacquiao is the bigger draw. Yeah. So Spence is obviously getting less than Pacquiao. It must be getting less than Pacquiao. You have to accept that. But then you don't always take his mantle, but that gives you a coup, that gives you a bargaining tool for other fighters, which is going to for Spence now.
Mayweather De La Hoya was the same.
Of course it was, yeah. But so you have to. I think Crawford thinks his worth is that much. And I admire his stance. He's one of the best fighters, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters on the planet, and he goes above Spence in pound-for-pound rankings, even though he's not the best welterweight, which is weird. But because Spence, as you said, Spence got a better list of fighters who he's beaten at that weight. But overall, I think Crawford's above him. But you got to be careful he doesn't negotiate himself out of a career. You see fighters like eat their way out of careers. Broner was one of them. He had a Hall of Fame career, Broner, for me, but he just couldn't stop eating, and he's a fool. And Crawford might just negotiate himself out of a Hall of Fame career if he's not careful. And that's the thing. So I don't know. He just needs to fight anybody. And then, forget about Spence. The Spence fight's not going to happen unless he takes less. If Spence beats Pacquiao, which you expect he will,
expect him to, yeah.
Then Spence even got more of a bargaining tool then. I don't need you. Because he still has Porter and all those fighters who really had good big names and people and exciting fights to be in.
Spence could beat him and move up anyway. He's talking about he wants to fight Canelo at 160 one day.
I don't see that happening, but still, I understand. Yeah. You can.
But again, you'd want to look up. And also, look forward.
You can just keep mentioning names so people forget about you. That's what you got to be careful you don't get frozen out and you don't exist anymore. And I think Crawford's the sort of a character who just where he's come from and the life he's had, that he'll just go stuff the lot of you and I'm gone and walk away. I hope not, because he's a fantastic fighter.
Well, I hope not either. And hopefully we get to see Spence versus Crawford.
Anyway, Josh Taylor, what?
Josh Taylor, unbelievable. Hang on. No problem. Sorry, I always turn my phone off, and then when I turn it on, I've always got loads of people wondering why I can't get hold of me. But anyway, Barry Jones, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for stopping by the Boxing Social podcast. Always a pleasure to have you down here, my friend. Nice to see you.
You too, mate.
Before I let everybody go, please remember that you can download Boxing Social podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as listening on Spotify. Barry Jones. Yeah, Barry Jones knows all of that stuff. But from me, Rob Tebbutt, from him, Barry Jones, thanks very much for stopping by and watching episode 19 of the Boxing Social podcast. We'll catch up with you next time.